Good evening, IndyCar Nation, and welcome to the pilot episode of Push to Pass podcast. I am Derik Vance. For people that may be tuning in and going, wait a minute, I've seen him somewhere before. Yes, I am the founder and writer of Indy News, which I'm sure that you've seen on both Facebook and Twitter. Well, maybe not as much Twitter, but on Facebook. I've been covering IndyCar here for the last couple years. Actually, this is the second full-time season being able to cover IndyCar. Absolutely love it. I've also brought on this year, Carrie Donovan has written a lot of articles that you see about the 2022 season up on indynews.org. So absolutely thank her for that. But yes, I started out working, or not working rather, but doing high school football play-by-play, which has now turned over to politics. I do a show Monday through Friday, 3 p.m. to 5 p.m., called the Common Sense Show. You can find that over at the Patriot Soapbox News Network on D Live, on Rumble, and then a multitude of other platforms. But I've been doing that since 2017. And now, like I said, the last couple years, I have now dabbled into IndyCar, being from living in Indianapolis. How can you not love IndyCar? Obviously, just went through the month of May, which culminated to the Indianapolis 500. We'll talk about that here as the show unfolds. But yes, this is the pilot episode. So episode number 1, as you see down on scrolling down below your screen there, this is the Push to Pass podcast episode 1. We're going to talk about tonight in this episode about an hour or so. We're going to recap what took place this past weekend at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway and the greatest spectacle in racing, which was the Indianapolis 500-mile race. Also, too, joining me on this show will be Indianapolis radio favorite Tony Donohue. He's going to join us. He's going to talk about the projects he has going on, and then also we'll recap the Indianapolis 500, like I said, and then we will preview the Chevrolet Detroit Grand Prix that is going to take place there for the last time in Belle Isle Park, Michigan. Next year, that race will be the downtown, or will be in downtown Detroit. So he'll be joining us here in the next few minutes, and then towards the bottom hour of the show, maybe around 9:45 ish. We're going to have Mike Reva join us from BetIndyCar. I know the lines for this week's race have just been out about an hour and a half, 2 hours ago. He's going to discuss the betting lines this weekend. And then also, too, we'll take a look at fantasy, because I know IndyCar does do a fantasy league there at IndyCar.com. So definitely go and check that out. And Mike Rivera of BetIndyCar is going to be joining us to discuss everything in the world of betting. So I need to step aside here real quick, and I will be right back, and we'll get into the recapping the greatest spectacle in racing, the 106th Indianapolis 500-mile race. All right. Sorry about that. Still trying to get over a cold that I've had. It seems like for the past 2 weeks or so. So still have a little bit of cough from that. But let's get into, of course, like I said, recapping the 106th version of the greatest spectacle in racing, which was the Indianapolis 500-mile race. And what a race. What a race indeed that we had. First time winner Marcus Ericsson, the Husky Chocolate Honda number 8 from Chip Ganassi Racing was your winner. It wasn't the most dominant car all day. Credit to Marcus. He did keep his nose clean. Obviously, if you were tuning in to the race, it was Scott Dixon had the quickest car. Where he got the speed from right before qualifying is we'll never know. But Dixie was dominant. Led majority of the race also too, which I'm sure Tony will point out when he joins me here in the next 10 minutes or so. Dixon, the lap, I believe he led the most amount of laps, and the amount that he did lead, and I don't have the accurate figure in front of me, puts him in all-time leader, leader, all-time laps leader. Try that here at IMS at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. So, again, like I said, Marcus Ericsson did win the 106th running of the Indianapolis 500, which was presented by Gamebridge in a absolute wild scramble late after a red flag this past Sunday with a one-car wreck. The wreck was caused by rookie Jimmy Johnson towards the end of the race. The track officials decided to red flag it so the fans could get a clean finish. So after the red flag and after all the cars were fired up, you had a green-white checker, and Marcus Ericsson again coming out on top, earning his first career victory, and like I said, the greatest spectacle in racing. Marcus Ericsson, keep in mind, is a Swede, the last Swede to win the Indianapolis 500, if you remember, was back in 1999, Kenny Brack. And we'll talk more about that here as well. But again, like I said, Marcus Ericsson won under caution in the number 8 Husky Chocolate Chip Ganassi Racing Honda after Sage Karam crashed coming into turn 2 on the final lap. And Ericsson made the comment after that when he seen the yellow come out due to Sage Karam's wreck on the last lap, he thought that due to the caution flag, he'd have more laps to run. But instead, it turned out that the last lap would be obviously the one that Ericsson wanted to lead, and that is exactly what happened. Before the last lap accident with Sage Karam, we had a great 1-2 race between Marcus Ericsson and Arrow McLaren driver Pato O'Ward, who were locked in a fantastic duel, to say the least, going in for the lead into that restart with 2 laps to go after the red flag was handed out by the track officials. Ericsson, to his credit, was doing everything he could, basically snaking around the 2.5 mile oval out at IMS to try to hold off Pato O'Ward. Some fact, or not some facts, but O'Ward did end up second in the race, obviously, in his number 5 Arrow McLaren SP Chevrolet, which was his best finish of the Indianapolis 500 in 3 career starts. Some quotes from Ericsson after the race on Sunday. He said that, quote, "I knew the Husky Chocolate car was fast enough, but it was still hard," Ericsson said. "I had to do everything there at the end to keep him, Pato O'Ward, behind me. I cannot believe it. I am so happy." So getting back to, as I said, Kenny Brack, if you remember, Ericsson did come from the Formula One family, where he was not as successful as he was hoping to be. But like I said, Ericsson became the second Swede to win the Indianapolis 500, again joining 1999 winner Kenny Brack. So kudos to Ericsson for that. I knew I forgot to turn my phone off. Ericsson and Kenny Brack, surprisingly, were able to speak via the video conference that they have on Zoom following the race, the post-race press conference. And obviously, Ericsson's best finish in the previous Indianapolis 500s was 11th last year. With the win on Sunday in the greatest spectacle in racing, team owner Chip Ganassi, since 2012, has his he got his first victory in the greatest spectacle in racing since 2012, his fifth as a solo owner, and sixth win overall. So obviously, congratulations goes out to Chip Ganassi as well. Also, too, with Ericsson's win in a double points race as the Indianapolis 500 was, Ericsson takes the lead currently in the NTT IndyCar Series point standings with his third career victory. His first career victory came about 1 year ago to this weekend, where Ericsson picked up a win in Detroit, and I'm sure we'll talk about that later. And then he went on last year as well, late in the season, to win at Nashville in August in what was a heck of a ride for him to that victory. 2013 Indianapolis winner Tony Kanaan finished third. He basically his whole demeanor in the last couple laps was basically going for broke. So to say, he finished third in the number one American Legion Chip Ganassi Racing Honda. So yes, Chip Ganassi did finish first and third on Sunday. So what a way for Chip Ganassi in their month of May. Also, too, as the Ganassi team finished a dominant month of May, like I said, putting two cars in the top three. Kanaan also recorded his fifth top three finish of his illustrious IndyCar career. Coming in fourth was the other Arrow McLaren car, Felix Rosenquist, who placed fourth, obviously, in the number 7 Arrow McLaren SP. As kudos to Arrow McLaren, Zach Brown and company, placing two cars in the top 4. Some other people that had notable finishes as well. Alexander Rossi, who made some news this week, and I'm sure we'll talk about that here momentarily. The winner of if you remember, the 100th Indianapolis 500 in 2016, he rounded out the top 5 in his number 27 Napa Auto Parts Auto Nation, Honda, after starting 7th. 2021 rather, winner Elio Castroneves, who was driving for which would be a new record, 5th Indianapolis 500, finished 7th after starting way in the back, 27th in his number 6 Auto Nation Sirius XM Honda, gaining the most positions from start to finish in the race. Getting back to Ericsson's win, Ericsson, like I said, who started 5th in the race, took the lead for good on lap 190 when, like I said, Indianapolis 500 rookie Jimmy Johnson made his final pit stop out of the sequence with the race leaders. Ericsson beat Pato O'Ward out of his pit stall and appeared onto Easy Street, so to say, to getting his face put on the Borg Warner Trophy. But who would have known that the race would end the way it did? Over the next few laps, Pato O'Ward, to his credit, did chip away, pulling within 2.7 seconds, but Ericsson still just had too dominant of a car. Some more quotes here from Marcus Ericsson after the race. "I couldn't believe it," Ericsson said of the red flag. "You can never take anything for granted, and obviously there were still laps to go. And I was praying so hard it was not going to be another yellow, but I knew there was going to be one. It was hard to refocus, but I knew the car was amazing." And he's definitely right into that. As the race resumed again back on lap 199, that's when Ericsson pulled a move from one Dario Franchitti, who he had a amazing conversation with the night before, snaking left and right on the front and back straightaways of the track to try to break O'Ward's momentum and take the air out of his car. All right. And then heading toward the white flag, that's when Ericsson dove toward the pit entrance, and then back to the center of the racetrack, trying again as hard as he could to break away from Award. On that final lap, the gap between the two was a small gap of 0.45 seconds to the flag stand with one lap to go. Pato tried one last ditched effort to try to pass Marcus Ericsson on the outside going into turn one, but Award thought better of it because Award said after the race that if he would have stayed on the accelerator going into turn one, he would have probably found himself in the wall. Some more quotes from Ericsson here. I was not going to put him into the wall, but he had to work hard to get around me there. I knew I could hold my line, referring to the last lap going into one. I was going to go flat. He was going to have to go too wide through turn one to get there. I knew if I went on the inside of one, I could keep my foot down. I was hoping I could keep my foot down. That was the plan, and obviously, it worked. So just getting some more here while we wait on our first guest to join us. But let's see. Here it is. Getting down to the day. Scott Dixon had NTT P1 award winner and 6-time NTT IndyCar Series champion. Scott Dixon appeared to be the driver to beat, like I said earlier, as he led a race-high 95 laps. And as I mentioned, he became the all-time lap leader in Indianapolis 500 history with over 600 laps, 665 to be exact. He surpasses the record of 644 by legendary 4-time winner of the race, Al Unser Jr. But Dixon had to go through the pits for a speeding penalty that coming on lap 175, and believe it or not, the penalty that Dixon had to serve, he was coming in the pits, he locked up the brakes, and he got clocked 1 mile an hour over 1 mile an hour over the speed limit. They're coming in the pits. So that is what caused Dixon to have his penalty there. Some quotes from Dixon. It's heartbreaking, to be honest. Dixon said, I came into the pit and had to lock the rears and kind of locked all four. Somebody had to lock the rear brakes. I knew it was going to be close. I think it was a mile an hour over or something, just frustrating. And then he placed all of the blame there on himself, saying, I just messed up. So that is your look from my perspective, my point of view. Just waiting for Tony Donohue to step in, and then we'll get his perspective on what he's seen on Sunday, and then we'll talk the Detroit race as well. Speaking of that Detroit race, like I said, the next NTT IndyCar Series race is obviously this coming weekend. Kicking off Friday, practice starts at first practice session starts Friday at 3:30, and then the race will be on Sunday, June 5th at the Raceway at Belle Isles Park in Detroit. If you want to catch the broadcast, it'll be live on USA and the IndyCar Radio Network. Starting at 3 p.m. So again, keep in mind too, like I said, with the race at Belle Isle Park this weekend, this will be the last time that the Detroit race will be at Belle Island Park rather, because it was announced I believe November of 2021 that the road course or street circuit of Detroit is going to be moved to downtown Detroit for the 2023 IndyCar season. So definitely something worth watching there as well. So Tony Donohue should be joining us here shortly. Just got a message from him, maybe a communications snafu, to say the least. So hopefully he'll be joining us, and he'll give us his take, like I said, on the Indianapolis 500 recap there, and then also too we'll preview the race this coming Sunday there in Detroit. So I do see that Tony has joined us. Tony, welcome to the Pass podcast. I was just telling the audience there, I think we had a little bit of communications snafu. But thank you for taking a little bit of time out of your busy time to join us. And before we get into recapping what was an amazing race on Sunday, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, man. Thanks for having me on here. Let me step outside real quick. Just a really exciting month of May we just had, and looking forward to this upcoming weekend. About myself, I worked at the Fan for about 10 years here in Indy, and have always loved IndyCar, and decided to move on and find some other efforts. Now we've launched Burnout Sports and burnoutsports.com, talking a lot of racing. So, you probably feel the same way about this, Derik. It's like we go to the track every day, and we're so involved in what's going on with the Indianapolis 500, and then Memorial Day rolls around, or that Tuesday rolls around, and this whole week has been filled with that post-race depression. Hell of a month and a hell of a 106 running of the Indianapolis 500.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. Who would have thought going into Sunday that we would get a finish that we did? I think for after first set of qualifying, we were all looking around each other going, where the hell did Scott Dixon get all the speed from? And he obviously had the dominant car, but it seems like year in and year out, for Dixon, something just jumps up and bites him. And who would have thought, coming into the pits for the last time on Sunday, we see him lock the rear brakes up, and he's 1 mile an hour over. I mean, it just adds to the bad luck that Dixon has had out at IMS.
Yeah, I mean, you're exactly right. You kind of think Mario Andretti, right? Guy who has won championships in numerous races, but only had one Indianapolis 500 win. I usually don't pick Dixon to win the 500, and I usually don't pick the pole sitter to win the Indianapolis 500. So 2 years in a row, I kind of faded him. But as we got deeper and deeper in that race, I was going, okay, he's right there. He's right there. He's right there. And then right when I was thinking, okay, this last pit stop, he's going to be fine. He's going to have a chance to win this thing. It goes wrong. And 1 mile an hour over, you feel gutted for him, right? This is the guy that has put his heart and soul into his IndyCar career, dating back to the IRL days in 2003 and before that in kart. This is the guy that loves this sport. He's never went away from Chip Ganassi racing, right? He's been loyal. And I will always say this about Dixon. I think he's a heck of a talent. He's one of my favorite guys in the paddock. But again, the craziest stat about Scott Dixon and his dominance and how he's been able to perform is the fact that he only has one Indy 500. And a lot of people are going to say, well, one Indy 500, that's more than 762 other guys have, or whatever it is, and how hard it is to win this race once. But when you race for 20 years at the level Scott Dixon has, you would think that he would have more than that. But again, with just one Indianapolis 500 win, I was absolutely gutted for that 9 car.
Yeah, you're absolutely right, and it's amazing the stats there that you just rattled off. That as accomplished as Scott Dixon is, if it's IndyCar, kart, whatnot, that he only has one Indianapolis 500 victory. And the way it looked on Sunday for Chip Ganassi, I mean, you had Alex Palou, who I think he was the odds-on favorite to win. I thought that he learned a lot last year coming in second behind Elio Castroneves. But, Palou makes one mistake, and it kind of puts him behind the 8 ball. Give him credit. He raced his way back into the top 10. And then you had, again, right after that, you had Dixon do what Dixon did. Who would have thought Chip Ganassi would have not only had a race winner, but had another car, Tony Kanaan, who basically went for broke on the last lap, finished third as well.
Yeah, I thought Kanaan had a really impressive day. Last year in pretty much the same ride, he qualified inside that top 9, but faded. And this year, Kanaan was right there, and he like he said when they talked to him during the red flag, it was, "I'm going for broke. I've got nothing to lose." Tough luck for Palou. I don't know if there's anything can be changed as far as that commitment line, which isn't really a commitment line. It's just a level of marking on the track. So 2 seconds later or 2 seconds earlier, and maybe we're talking about Palou and Victory Circle, but I've called him Mr. Consistent for a long time now, Marcus Ericsson, and I knew that he was going to be there at the end of the day. And I talked to a couple people on Saturday doing interviews, and I said, "Here's the deal: Marcus Ericsson is going to be consistent, and he's going to be right there. And somebody that starts in the top 9, maybe 2 people are going to have something affected on pit road. Every year, Derik, we see it where somebody's in contention to win this race and something goes wrong on pit road. Ed Carpenter last year comes to mind on that first pit stop. He cycled all the way back in the field, had to charge all the way up for that 5th place position. But yeah, like you said, I was very impressed by what Tony Kanaan did in what may have been his last Indianapolis 500, more than likely not. But he's thinking this could be my. You don't get a lot of chances to win this race, and if anybody can tell you that, it's Kanaan. Obviously, winning in 2013 was close in 07. Has had great cars over his 20 years at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, and we got a chance to you got to go for it. We saw Pato O'Ward go for it on the last lap. Didn't quite make the move. He had a big lift going into 1, which is interesting to me to know why he lifted. Because I think when you go for that move, you're going for broke, right? To win the 500, you don't want to lift. But yeah, Marcus Ericsson getting it done was huge. And like you said, yeah, Ganassi had 3 guys in the top 10, but Dixon absolutely hosed. And then Johnson bringing out that yellow flag that ended up bringing out the red flag. As a fan, you're sitting there thinking, I think Johnson just won the 500 for his teammate Marcus Ericsson, right? Like, this thing is not going to finish under green. The yellows, it seemed like, took 2 to 3 laps more than usual to get the track cleaned up throughout the day. And then all of a sudden, I was like, oh, wait, they could still red flag this thing. They didn't do it in 2020 on lap 196, but they did it this year on lap 194. I love the move. I thought it was fine. I'm glad at the end it didn't screw over Marcus Ericsson, who's a deserving champion. But IndyCar and NBC are going to do everything they can to make sure that race finishes under green flag conditions in the biggest race of the world. And it ended up finishing under yellow anyway with the Sage Karam incident. But the red flag, I thought, was the right call at the time.
Yeah, and everybody in the media center agreed as well, because obviously getting fans back for the first time at full capacity for a couple years, I think you'd be doing them a total disservice by ending the race the way they would have ended it. So yeah, I have absolutely no objections with the red flag as well. And we talk about Alex Palou, and he is so young. He learned a lot, but when it's all said and done, I've talked to a few people, and he's going to get himself a 500 when it's all said and done. Same way with Pato O'Ward, and you spoke about why he lifted into 1. If I remember correctly, listening to him afterwards, he thought he would end up in the wall if he didn't lift. So did he learn something there? Absolutely. And we give credit to Chip Ganassi for finishing 1 and 3. Well, let's not forget Errol McLaren, who made some news this week. We'll get on that here momentarily. But you had Pato O'Ward finishing 2nd, and don't forget about Felix Rosenquist finishing 4th as well. So, kudos obviously to Chip Ganassi being the winning owner, but Zach Brown and the guys over at Errol McLaren, they kind of cleaned up as well.
Yeah, they had Montoya finish 11th as well. And I talked to Jay Query before the race, and we always talk about who's a driver or two that is going to start towards the back, and you're not going to hear from all day, but all of a sudden at the end of the day, he's going to be inside of the top 10 or top 12, and it's usually Hildebrand or Montoya. Montoya did the same thing last year. And it's funny because after the race, he said, well, we pretty much sucked all month, and he ended up, 11th. So a big day for Errol McLaren on Sunday. They've won races with Pato O'Ward. There's been all these rumors going around that Rossi's joining the team, which, as mentioned, became official today. And then what's going to happen next for Felix Rosenquist? But Felix, I thought, had a really good month. The results at the Grand Prix are not going to show how good of a car he had, especially in the rain. They were right up there. that was kind of a survive and advance type race. And for Felix, he's always been a guy that's qualified well, but hasn't been able to back that up with results on the track. And he was there all day. He didn't put a wheel wrong on Sunday. Finishes fourth, his best finish at the 500 by far. A guy that hasn't really shown much on ovals. A lot of these guys come over from Europe, and Ericsson as well. It's crazy to think that I believe 4 out of the last 6 Indianapolis 500 winners all have Formula One experience, have came over here from Formula One careers. You think about Montoya back in 15. Yeah, he won in 2000, but then went to Formula One. Rossi comes to the rookie in 16 with Formula One experience, and a guy who really didn't do much in Formula One, had a few starts, never really challenged for a podium. Takuma Sato. People forget that Sato had a Formula One career before he came over to Indy. He obviously has 2 500 victories in 17 and 20. And then Marcus Ericsson, a guy that came from Formula One, went to Arrow McLaren when it was more so the Arrow, Sam Schmidt, Peterson Motorsports. He didn't really do much. I mean, this guy was in the wall. He was in the wall at the 500, and he goes to Chip Ganassi Racing with that Husky chocolate backing. And, the last couple of years for him, we've really seen how great of a driver he is, winning at Detroit last year, winning at Nashville after basically flying through the air on lap 7 last year at Nashville. Come back to win that race was huge. The thing about this win for Marcus Ericsson is Derik, you and I follow this every week. We know how talented he is. But to the casual fan, this really shows how good Marcus Ericsson really is. And you've seen this with a lot of guys. Sato was one of them. Rossi, even, as we mentioned. Once these guys win on an oval, that confidence. Simon Pagenaud, another perfect example, a guy with a road racing background. And once he got an oval win, it was like, all right, he's got these things figured out, and he's contending week in and week out. So was really cool to see Marcus Ericsson get the victory on Sunday. And then equally as fun was kind of seeing his final, his next 48 hours where he's at the banquet and he's moving around, and now he's in New York City and he's back. And now, oh, hey, by the way, it's Thursday and we'll give you some rest, but you got to go race this weekend in Detroit.
Yeah, I can honestly say I don't envy his schedule the past 48 hours, like you said, because I'm one that needs a lot of sleep, and I can't imagine the lack of sleep that Marcus is getting. But you touched on Arrow McLaren. Huge news, really, the whole month as a whole, Tony. If you look at it first, they announced the contract extension with Pato O'Ward. They got done. You see how much they're investing in a new facility in central Indiana. And then just like you said today, making the announcement, it'll be formal tomorrow at Detroit that in Alexander Rossi coming on as in the stable in 2023. And you said, what happens now with Felix Rosenqvist? To me, and again, I know you've covered this a little bit more than I have, but if Arrow McLaren is giving a contract extension to Pato O'Ward, they're putting money into a facility here in central Indiana, who's to say that they don't come out in 2023 with a stable of Rosenqvist, Ward, and Rossi?
Yeah, that's the big question, right? That's another domino left to fall is what to do with Felix Rosenqvist. The team likes Felix, but I think that they're a team, too, that wants to have the results that Andretti, Penske, Ganassi. You talk about the top 3 in IndyCar. I will say this, though, with that facility, and you're right, you would think that you could go 3 cars, but will it be Felix? Can they go get a guy like Rinus VeeKay, who is an up-and-coming talent, has proved that he can win, has proven that he can qualify well at Indy. He still has a lot to learn, obviously finishing 33rd on Sunday on how to finish 500 miles and keep that car up front. But don't leave this out of the question, Derik, that Felix Rosenqvist could move over to Formula E, which is a series that Arrow McLaren is going to enter next year. There's a lot of money in Formula E. It's not as competitive. It's not IndyCar, but we've seen guys like Oliver Askew go over and be able to make a really good living over the last couple of years in Formula E. An exciting series if you watch it. It doesn't have the sound, as you would come to grow to expect in a racing series. But don't be surprised if maybe they do poach Rinus VeeKay away. I know there was a rumor today about Alex Palou going over to Arrow McLaren. But if I'm Alex Palou, I'm fresh off a championship. I finished second in the 500 last year. I could have had a really good chance on Sunday to win the 500. I qualified up front. I was leading the points heading into the month of May. I'm not leaving Chip Ganassi because, yeah, Dixon is still the number one top dog there, right? But Dixon only has 2 to 3 years tops left before he at least hangs it up for full-time competition. So if I'm Alex Palou, I don't go and chase a little bit more money to go to Arrow McLaren. I'm staying where I'm at Chip Ganassi Racing. But as you mentioned, there's a reason why Rossi jumped ship. He wasn't happy with Andretti, and he was offered a boat ton of money. And there's not a lot of drivers in this sport that are paid drivers, right? There's not a lot of guys that are, they're all making money, right? And a lot of it has to do with sponsorship, but there's only a certain few that are actually getting paid off of their driving talent. And now Alexander Rossi is one of those. And I just think there's a huge competitive nature inside of that Arrow McLaren garage to where all the drivers are competing against each other. They kind of run a Formula One operation, and Pato O'Ward, that was a lot for him to learn. Coming out of St. Pete this year, he was incredibly pissed off that he needed to share some things with his teammate, and kind of the communication was very Formula One cutthroat type. And he's not a guy that's going to tell you what's wrong with the car. I mean, it's literally almost like Cole Trickle in Days of Thunder. Like, I just know how to drive the car. I don't know anything else about the setup. I'll let you know how it feels and adjust it to my driving, because I'm not going to adjust my driving. But yeah, good to see Pato get that new contract earlier this month. We'll see what Rossi does over there, and then we'll see how the dominoes fall for Felix Rosenqvist.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely spot on with Palou, and I did hear a whisper about Palou going to Arrow McLaren, but you got at some point, Alex is going to make a business decision, and I think that business decision, the best for him, in my opinion, is, like you said, stay with Chip Ganassi. You're going to be the one that's going to be carrying the banner into the future for that race team, because, like you said, Dixon only has a few years left, and it's him and Ericsson. So Palou's going to be the up and comer in that stable. I think it's best for him, and I think we're both in agreement there that he stays right with Chip Ganassi. And but speaking of someone else that moved, Rossi's car was given up yesterday with the announcement of Kyle Kirkwood, 1 year in AJ Foyt Enterprises. Now next year, 2023, he's going to be the new driver of the 27 Napa. And actually, it's AutoNation. Sorry, they didn't have Napa on there. It was surprised to see Kirkwood, again, only being 1 year within AJ Foyt Enterprises, already jumping to Andretti.
Yeah, this was kind of a rental, right, for AJ Foyt and a team that thought, okay, well, we can get a hell of a talented driver for 1 year that'll maybe help our cause, maybe help our team that's been down. Derik, I don't think AJ Foyt Racing has a top 10 over the last 5 seasons. So, okay, we'll take this kid for 1 year, maybe get a different, fresh perspective on the team. Kyle Kirkwood has an immense amount of talent. We've kind of already seen that. And my concern in this year was he doesn't have the car underneath him to fit his talent. And now he will at Andretti Autosport. Goes back kind of home after running Indy Lights there for the last 2 seasons. I'm looking forward to see what Kirkwood can do. It looks like Napa's going to go over to McLaren with Alexander Rossi. So that kind of shows the backing there that they'll have with him. But I'm excited to see what Kyle Kirkwood could do. But we did kind of know this was going to happen, right? There's not enough seats. And Devlin DeFrancesco is the guy that brought a lot of money to the table, and was a guy that has kind of been groomed for this spot, for that ride with the Steinbrenner family and with Andretti Autosport. But yeah, so a couple of dominoes have already fallen so far. But real quick, Derik, you go back, if I were to pull you aside, let's say the start of 2021, and I said, over the next, let's call it 15, 16 months, Chip Ganassi is going to win the IndyCar championship, and Chip Ganassi is going to win the Indianapolis 500, and I told you that neither of those would be won by Scott Dixon, you'd probably call me crazy.
Yeah, absolutely, 100%. You're absolutely right that I would have said I will bet the farm that you are absolutely wrong, and yeah, you're absolutely spot on there. So it will be. I have to give credit to Andretti though; they have gotten younger. You look at that with Devlin DeFrancesca, and then with Kyle Kirkwood and Colton Herta, his future could be up in the air. There's been a lot of talk of him jumping into another series as well. So it's going to be interesting to see finish, obviously, 2022 and what the offseason brings. Last thing, Tony, before I let you go, we do have a race this weekend. In the last time, it'll be Belle Isle in Michigan before they go to the streets of downtown Detroit, where they're going to have to be making sure they don't get shot at, dodging bullets, not cars. But you want to give a little bit of preview to that?
Yeah, I like Belle Isle. I've been there before. It's also in a bad part of town, and it's a little weird getting there. I don't know if you've ever been there, Derik. Like the credential and ticketing office is like a mile down the road from the track. You've got to walk over a really long bridge. But this is probably one of the most demanding courses on the track or on the circuit, because you've got so many tight turns, so many braking zones. The apex going into one there after you take the green flag at full speed, a quick right, a quick left, and then around the loop. It's a very tough track. And in Detroit, they have crappy winners. And this is a street circuit that 345 days out of the year is driven over by different cars and snowplows. So, there might be a bump somewhere that there wasn't a bump last year. There might be a crack in the road that in these cars so low to the ground with the downforce levels that they run, that could catch a guy out and put him in the wall. And this track is so unforgiving because it's so tight, down along the riverfront. You've got that long straightaway that has a little bit of a bend to it, then a quick power right. It's a very difficult track. And Marcus Ericsson's been great here. He won his first career race a year ago. Obviously, it's not a doubleheader like it has been in the last couple of years. Usually, the Indy 500, there's a bit of a hangover come Detroit. I think the average finish over the last 12 races for the Indianapolis 500 champion at Detroit is 8th. But this is a weekend where, I was kind of looking back at the month of May and who had a good month overall. There really wasn't a lot of guys that had a good month overall. Marcus Ericsson had the best month overall. He wins the 500, 4th in the Grand Prix, qualifies 5th. Colton Herta wins the Grand Prix, had an absolute crap Indianapolis 500. Alex Palou had a crap Grand Prix, didn't really have a good finish in the 500 despite finishing inside of the top 10. Dixon, I wouldn't call that a good month. Ray Letterman Lanigan Racing, bad month. Renus VK, not a very good month. Connor Daly actually had a good month, finishing 4th and 6th. I mean, literally, if you were to tell me who are the best two drivers coming out of the month of May, I'd be hard-pressed to not say Marcus Ericsson or Connor Daly. I mean, this is the best that we've seen Connor perform, so we'll see if he can carry that over. But overall, I mean, there was everybody besides those two drivers either had a good 500 and a bad Grand Prix. I mean, even Pato O'Ward with that spin under yellow. I mean, he was in contention for a podium in the Grand Prix, spins under yellow. Same with Felix. Felix is right there at the Grand Prix. Things went south for him. So there wasn't a guy outside of Ericsson and Connor Daly that could say, yeah, you know what, I'm satisfied at both results over the two races in May.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. Connor does do well historically at Detroit. And in the next segment, I had next guest coming on. We'll talk fantasy. But one of my dark horses was, you just mentioned, Marcus Ericsson.
Yep.
So it is going to be interesting to see the lack of sleep he's going to get. Will that hurt his performance this weekend in Detroit? Tony, I know you have, again, a side project you're working on getting launched. Tell everybody about that, and then where they can follow you at on social media.
Yeah, TonyDindy.com, or excuse me, TonyDindy on Twitter, burnoutsports.com. I think a dark horse this week will be Graham Rahal. He's been great there. Obviously has 2 wins, had a good run there in the 2 races last year. I think Santino Ferrucci is a guy that I just interviewed on my podcast this week about being a super sub again, filling in for Colin Milot. I think he's going to have a good finish for Juncos Hollinger Racing, who has proven that they're the little team that could with the 1-car operation. They've proved that they can contend for top 12s with Colin Milot, and I think Santino Ferrucci will be right there as well. So tell Mike in the next segment hello. He is my counterpart on the Burnout Bets show. We'll have one coming your way in the next 24 or so hours. So make sure you tell Mike down in Florida I said hello.
Yeah, absolutely. And Tony, if we don't run into each other before then, I think we're going to cross paths, I believe, Nashville in August.
Sounds good to me, Derik. Anytime you need me on, just shoot me a text.
Oh, absolutely. Again, Tony, huge thank you for being the first guest here on Push to Pass podcast, and we'll definitely look forward to having you back on.
Appreciate it, Derek. Take care, man. Enjoy the race this weekend.
Yeah, you too. And that was Tony Donohue. Go check his stuff out. Everything that he is doing, huge IndyCar guy. So go check him out and learn a thing or two. As Tony just said, our next guest is here joining us. Spoke with this gentleman, actually just made acquaintances with him last night as I was putting this show together. But Mike from BetIndyCar is joining us. Mike, first and foremost, let me thank you for taking a little bit of time out of your busy schedule to join us. For people that don't follow you on Twitter or are unfamiliar with you, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, man. Appreciate you having me on. You hear me all right? Everything good on that end? Cool.
As we say, you are 5 by 5.
All right, buddy. Yeah, man. Appreciate you reaching out. I'm always game to talk IndyCar and betting, IndyCar and fantasy sports as well. I'm probably, I'm an IndyCar fan, IndyCar lifelong fan. I started, I'm very much into the sports betting space. I have a lot of background in betting sports for a long time, and obviously the two things intermerge. And I've been trying to, do my part to kind of grow the sport of IndyCar, through the betting and the sports wagering industry. And that's kind of, I started this little thing on Twitter a couple of years ago. It's been growing. Obviously now you can see, as I just heard Tony talk about, my buddy there. We do a show on Burnout Bets that's been kind of taken off recently. I'm just trying to grow the sport and try to educate people to how to bet IndyCar, how to make a little money, and how to look at it from the sports gambling side of things. Sports gambling is blowing up across the country. I've been a long time kind of proponent of it. I think IndyCar, unfortunately, I wish IndyCar would do a little bit more when it comes to sports betting. And it was really exciting in the month of May. You saw IMS partner with Caesars. That was, I thought, a huge step. I'm really hoping IndyCar partners with a sports book here, and also partners with some of the fantasy, your DraftKings of the world, your FanDuels of the world. So, man, I've been a lifelong IndyCar fan. I went to my first race at 1 year old, the Grand Prix of Miami, and I think I've been attending races ever since. And probably betting on IndyCar before anybody knew how to bet on IndyCar. So I've been doing that for a while as well.
Yeah, definitely seen the month of May with the IMS now partnering, as you said, with Caesars, and I think with IndyCar and any other sport that you can bet on, it's a lot more exciting and a lot more enjoyable when you have a little skin in the game. I know as of last night, I know you didn't have the lines out, but I guess those were released by DraftKings there within the last couple hours. I know you've been able to stew over those a little bit. For people that do like to put a little skin in the game this weekend in Detroit, who are some of the people that when I sent you those lines, what are some of the drivers that jumped out at you right away?
Yeah, there are a couple. And before I get to that, just to kind of let people who don't know how IndyCar betting works, we still have a long way to go to meet what we see in F1 and NASCAR betting. But the way IndyCar betting works is sportsbooks will usually release the lines like they did today, a couple days before the race, maybe even a day before the race. You get your pre-qualifying lines. And then as soon as practices and qualifyings happen, sportsbooks pull the lines down, and then they'll put new lines out, probably usually the morning of the race or late night in this case would be Saturday for a Sunday race. And those are going to be the lines based on how they qualified. So the name of the game when when the sports books release their odds here is try to find value. Try to find guys you think are going to qualify up top and are going to go from a bigger number betting line down to a smaller number. So when I looked at the betting odds, there were different numbers throughout the sports books. Most of the sports books had Newgarden and Palou up there as your favorites. At 5-1, 6-1, respectively. I can look at it right here. Newgarden at 5-1 at DraftKings, Palou co-favorite at 5-1, Award at 6-1. But I'm looking, like I just said, I'm looking for value. I'm looking for guys that can qualify well here that are going to have, that I can get at a big number. So the one that jumped off the page to me, and there's a little bit more going on here, is more than just the racing, is Rossi. 30-1. Rossi's a guy who's qualified well at this course. He's been fast at the pass in both pre-screen and aero packages, and then even in the recent cars. So he's the guy that knows how to get around Detroit. This is a tough race to handicap. I heard Tony mention it to you right before I came on here. Crazy things happen here. This is not your typical street circuit. Usually in your street and roads courses, your winner is going to come from that fast six, the Firestone fast six. However, the last two races, I believe, our winners came from 15th and 16th position. Ericsson won from 16th, and then the other winner was coming from 15th. So weird things happen in Detroit, but Rossi at 30-1, something that stuck out at me. That's a pre-qualifying bet that I'll put and I'll make. And my hope is that he'll qualify in that Firestone Fast Six, and his line will go from 30-1 probably down to 6 or 7 or something in the single digits. And I'm going to be sitting there. The goal is to be sitting there on Sunday with a 30-1 ticket.
It's interesting, some of the names that you spoke of, because I'm more on the IndyCar fantasy side of things, because there's some things in betting that I'm probably gonna have to get with you with, because I don't quite understand. But you talked about some of the favorites going in, and it's funny because some of the people fantasy wise that I looked at, you already rattled off there. Pato Award, Alex Palou, Joseph Newgarden, and then you talked about Rossi and him being at 30-1. He's one of my 5 dark horses in this race as well. So I found it interesting that on the betting side of things, we're kind of in the same boat. I have favorites in the fantasy part, and the same people that I have the favorites at, you would put money on.
Yeah, and look, it works the same way. If while IndyCar is unfortunately not in the quote unquote daily fantasy community yet, with your DraftKings and your FanDuel, like F1 just became, I've been pushing for that. I'm not a fan of IndyCar's fantasy product, just to be honest with you. If I'm going to do fantasy, people do fantasy to win money. It's gambling. It's gambling with skill. And DraftKings can offer a product. I'm not a huge F1 fan. I follow F1. I sometimes bet F1 at the communities cross. But I've been having a ball playing F1 fantasy on DraftKings. I put in a $5 entry and walked away with $200. Can't do that in IndyCar's game right now. Just by playing a little bit of game theory. But the fantasy and the betting do correlate. Obviously, you have fantasy, you have your pricing. And the pricing is usually correlated to the betting odds. So the most expensive drivers are usually going to be your betting faves. That's what you would see if you had a IndyCar fantasy game on DraftKings. Works the same way with golf fantasy, and F1 fantasy has been the same way. Obviously, like your Verstappens of the world, he's the highest priced driver, and it works the same way with the IndyCar fantasy game. So yeah, you're looking for your dark horses, you're looking for your 30-1. So there is definitely some correlations there in how you bet and how you look at betting. Your betting numbers. You want to bet numbers, not drivers, for the most part. But obviously, you need to do your research and know who does well.
All right, so let's play a little game here. We give you the pen over at IndyCar.com, their fantasy league. How do you change it to make it more fan and user friendly?
You signed a contract with DraftKings and FanDuel to be the fantasy partner of IndyCar, and you let them do their thing. They have the capital, they have the backing, they can put the money up. To me, that would be a huge, huge win to grow the sport. Because you're going to get eyes and people joining they're just going to, your people that play fantasy football on DraftKings, they're playing for millions of dollars every week. And they're going to come over and it's going to put eyes on IndyCar that weren't on there before. And then the product will speak for itself. I do believe, IndyCar is a great product. It's super competitive, which makes the fantasy even better. When you really have, these guys are all within a second, top to bottom every week when it comes to qualifying. It makes betting really hard, but it would make fantasy even more competitive, and you put up prize pools. But that would be my dream. I hope they get there and they realize that. If you want to make it, otherwise, I'm not sure what more IndyCar can do besides attach a little bit of prize money to, create prize pools and mimic what you see on the fantasy sites. But, ideally, I'd love to see them partner with DraftKings or FanDuel, sign a contract, just what F1 just did. I've been watching the F1 contest lobbies. They're filling up. They've got thousands of people across the world playing F1 fantasy on DraftKings for big prize pools. I think the biggest pot was about 15,000 people and $5, and top prize walked away with 25K.
Now, do you see in the future, a year, 2, 3 years away, that IndyCar would make a move to partner not only obviously with Caesars like IMS did, but either DraftKings or FanDuel or hell, even both?
Yeah, look, I think the betting stuff is going to come first. The way sports wagering has blown up in the United States, it's legal. It's obviously legal in Indiana. Indiana is one of the top, I believe, 8 states in the country as far as their betting handle. So it's being legalized state to state. There's politicians realize there's money to be made, and IndyCar hopefully is going to realize. I think the betting partnerships will come first, which hopefully means we'll see more betting odds. If you watched Tony and I talk on the Burnout Bets show, like the IndyCar, the Indy 500 is the Indy betting, sports betting Christmas. You get all types of props. I have, it's always my favorite week because I make, frankly, it's my favorite bets to make is, I had a big bet on the winner coming from under 9.5 on the grid. That's done me very well the last couple of years. Hit again this year. Ericsson started in the top 5. So that was a win. And you get to bet on things like, the number odd or even on the car that won. I think I lost $10 to Tony on that. And you get to have lots of different prop bets, and you get the bets early. You get a ton more matchups. Matchup bets are driver versus driver. If you want to make money betting IndyCar, you want to stick to that. It's really hard to pick a winner every week. But it's a lot better when you have a lot of top 3s, top 5s, and matchup bets.
All right, Mike, last 2 questions that I have. First, last week, I know you put a little scratch down on the 500. How did you make out?
I did great. I love the 500. The 500 usually is my most profitable race. And it's because there's just more time to make bets, more stuff to dive into. And if you follow, the sports books don't get a ton of action in IndyCar. And honestly, they're slow to react, and they don't, you can get some good lines if you follow and you know what you're doing and you're paying attention to, the practice times and the drive times and the practices and the carb day and everything leading up and what drivers are saying. So I had a great week. The bets I released on Burnout Bets, and I put all my bets out on Twitter. So if you follow me at Indy Bet, I release a betting card for every single race, so you can see exactly what I'll bet. And then on Sunday, I'll do a betting recap. For instance, on the IndyCar, the GP was a total. I made the pun. It was a washout for me. I had a big bet on Power. He looked great. He got the pole. I was in a great position, and then of course the storms came and everything went to hell. But the Indy 500 was a great race for me. I was undefeated on my matchups. I did a big fade of Jimmy Johnson, so when he put it in the wall late, I about jumped off my couch because that meant every single Jimmy Johnson bet I had against him was a winner. It would have been great for me if Pato would have won. I had Tony and I each decided we were going to fade Dixon just because I said based on the numbers, but an award was one of my picks to win. And when he pulled that outside move on turn 1, I'm like, come on, man, like that would have been great. But I did have award top 3, did have Rosenquist top 5, and then like I said, I did really well on the prop bets. So I wish hopefully we can see more of that for Detroit here. You're basically going to get your to win bets here, and then on Sunday morning you'll see win bets, top 3 bets. And the sportsbooks usually release anywhere between 5 to 10 matchup bets of driver versus driver. And that's what, that's when you're really looking to see what's out there and make your bets usually a couple hours before the race.
Good stuff. I know we earlier we talked about favorites and then, value picks. Who are some of the people just initially with the lines coming out? Who are some of the drivers that right now, if you had to put your money down, you're going to try to stay away from?
Stay away from. So drivers that I'm probably fading here is Ericsson. I know you guys talked about liking Ericsson. I'm coming around on Ericsson. He's done very well in Detroit. He has good history, but after the whirlwind week that you've seen him go through after Indy 500 hangover, he doesn't qualify well here. He frankly, he crashed on lap, 1 or 2 last year and won the race. It was a weird race. When have you ever seen a guy crash and win? So a lot of things had to fall his way to get that win at Detroit. So he's going to be off the list. His line is way too low for me. Other guys I'm probably not going to be touching. Grosjean is not going to be on my list as well. I think he's gotten a little reckless. I usually love Harvey's a long shot I like because he qualifies well, but I think he's just struggled in the Rahal camp. So I'm going to have to see some qualifying results out of him. But yeah, those are the guys I'll be fading. If I see a Jimmy Johnson matchup, I will fade him. That's been very profitable for me, is take anybody versus Jimmy. So maybe you can get something like a Ferrucci versus Johnson. It all depends on what the sports books put out there. So the guys, like I said, I already had a bet on Rossi. The guys that I'm placing bets on, Rossi. Rahal, I think, is another interesting bet at 30-1. So I like him as well as other on the dark end of it. VK was a guy I liked in the 500, and I was feeling great about that for the first 20 laps. I thought VK was fast. He was another one of my big bets at the 500, but he's sitting there at 18-1. That's 18-1 if VK puts it in the top 6. Those odds are going to fall all the way down to 5, 4, 3-1. So I'll probably be looking at VK. And then look, I'm a sucker for Will Power. This race, I have bad memories of Detroit last year. I had a nice big bet on Will Power at 10-1 before qualifying. He puts it on the pole. He's got the race pretty much in the bag, and then the red flag comes out and his engine stalls. And that's how another thing that fell Ericsson's way. Power should have won that race, but that's betting, that's gambling for you. But it made that race quite fun, and I think I might have been throwing stuff at the couch, but hey, it was a ton of fun.
Mike, like I said, we have never spoken until now, but I think great minds think alike, because my favorites, I have 4. Pato O'Ward, Alex Palou, Joseph Newgarden, Will Power. My dark horses, and it's interesting who you mentioned. I have Alexander Rossi, Graham Rahal, Marcus Ericsson, Takuma Sato, Rinus VK. And my fades are a little different. Scott Dixon, Colton Herta, Scott McLaughlin, Simon Pagenaud, Felix Rosenquist, and Connor Daly.
Yeah, we're pretty much aligned on there. Pretty much right on. So, hey, you got to sign up on one of those betting accounts and throw a couple bucks on those ones you like. I always tell people save a little money for, because the worst thing you can do is, have somebody qualify poorly. So, you maybe put about 10%, 25% of what your bankroll is for the week pre-qualifying. It changes track to track, but like I mentioned, this is a tough one to handicap. I would wait to see what happens after quals, and then take the other 75% of your bankroll and pick some matchups, pick a couple winners, make a betting card, and you'd be stunned at how important I was sweating the Ed Carpenter top 10, and when his engine went off, when they had read that red flag, like, you start paying attention to different things, more parts of the race become important to you, especially when you get those boring races when somebody just takes off. It's great if it's the guy you have a to-win bet on, but you also are very much invested in your matchups and what's going on elsewhere in the track.
Yeah, you just basically made the point earlier that the more money you have in this, the more invested you are, the more excitement that comes. But Mike, again, for people that are interested in following you and following your bets on social media, where can people do that at?
Yeah, you see it on the screen there. At Indy_bet is my Twitter handle. Pretty much do everything through Twitter right now. Like we've talked about before, we do a betting show at Burnout Bets, which is Tony's company, Burnout Sports. It's a subsidiary of that. So we'll tweet all that out and post all that. So we'll probably have a show for Detroit, either post or pre or post qualifying. So Burnout Sports, Burnout Bets, and then really everything is going to be on Indy_bet.
Awesome. Mike, again, huge thank you for carving a little bit of time out of your busy schedule to stop by and be guest number 2 here on Push to Pass podcast. Again, huge thank you, and we'll look forward to having you again. I'm trying to think what the next race is after Detroit. It's not Iowa, is it?
I think it's Road America, maybe. I don't know. I don't know.
I think you might
I
be
haven't
right.
made that far.
Yeah, I haven't either. But we look forward to having you back to handicap the next race after Detroit. Again, huge thank you for joining us, and we'll talk again soon.
Yeah, man. Thanks for having me. Great time.
Yep. Thank you. Go check Mike out over there at Indy _bet when it's time to put some scratch down on this weekend's race, the Chevrolet Detroit Grand Prix. Well, that about wraps it up for Push to Pass podcast episode number 1. A huge thank you to everyone that tuned in, everyone that chimed in. Also, huge thank you to both Tony Donohue for giving us insight, recapping the 500, giving a little bit of insight to this weekend's race in Detroit. And then also another huge thank you out to Mike at Indy _bet. Go check him out and put some scratch down on the race this weekend. So for Derik Vance of Push to Pass podcast, that does it. Look forward to the next show, which we could potentially be doing this on Thursdays. We just have to wait and see how things fall. But until then, we will see you at the track, and we will see you again down the road. Thank you.